Humanity has long studied the fundamental ingredients of life, among them sound, light, and the elemental forces of nature. The agricultural world deals intimately with the balance of these aspects of creation. Although soil, water, air, and light conditions have been carefully optimized for growth, the beneficial impacts of sound on horticulture have yet to be fully realized. In recent decades, numerous studies have shown the correlation between vibratory stimuli and plant development. As we continue to refine our understanding of these interactions, humanity stands to produce faster growing, more robust foods. At the same time, sound-based technologies are poised to promote healthy, revitalized ecosystems. To better understand how sound can affect organic life forms, let's look at the properties of sound itself. Sound travels via mechanical pressure waves. These pressure waves require a medium of particles to pass through, solid, liquid, or gas. As sound energy transfers through space, the affected particles compress and decompress. Depending on wave properties, they interact with the environment in many ways. Some waves are dampened by absorbent materials like fabric, while others bounce off of reflective surfaces such as glass, stone, or metal. We know that sound penetrates physical objects because, even within a closed room, we can hear sound from outside. If you place a glass of water on the table, vibrations transferred through the ground can cause the water to ripple. Our bodies, and those of plants, are full of liquid. Sound vibrations can penetrate cell walls and restructure fluids. Experiments showing that sound is capable of reorganizing matter were documented in Galileo's time. He observed, "As I was scraping a brass plate with a sharp iron chisel, I heard the plate emit a rather strong and clear whistling sound. I noticed a long row of fine streaks, parallel and equidistant from one another." This description of a geometric structure produced by sound describes a typical cymatics experiment. Robert Hooke and later Ernst Chladni would cover a metal plate in flour and use a violin bow to resonate it, causing the particles to reorganize into various geometric patterns depending on the frequency. Experiments such as these visually demonstrate the influence of sound on particles. The use of sound vibration to move a physical object is known as acoustophoresis, literally sound migration. Researchers from Washington State University and UIC report that the ability to precisely trap, transport, and manipulate micrometer-sized objects, including biological cells, DNA-coded microspheres, and microorganisms, is very important in life science studies and biomedical applications. Our experiments show that polymer microparticles can be manipulated by ultrasound and form into a variety of patterns. Another study published in the National Center for Biotechnology Information concluded that the on-chip acoustofluidic platform is an effective tool for harvesting target microalgae from mixed populations of microalgae and other contaminants. A patent for technology using ultrasound and acoustophoresis to collect and separate microorganisms in water has already been submitted. All of this is relevant because it reveals that sound can be used to manipulate matter on the molecular level. There are many potential applications of this technology, such as isolating algae to clean polluted water sources, extracting it to produce biofuel, or harvesting optimal strains to solve the world hunger crisis. Another poignant principle of sound is constructive versus destructive interference. Sympathetic resonance describes a constructive process in which two similar waves reinforce each other, amplifying the sound. In the case of destructive interference, two opposing wave patterns reduce or cancel each other. The principles of resonance explain how amphitheaters acoustically amplify certain frequencies, why it's hard to hear a pin drop in a sonically competitive environment, and how a singer can shatter glass with their voice. If sound waves can break glass, what else can they degrade? The CDC states that loud noise can damage cells and membranes in the cochlea. Listening to loud noise for a long time can overwork hair cells in the ear, which can cause these cells to die. However, audible sounds outside of the 20 to 20,000 Hz range aren't the only sounds that affect living organisms. Frequencies above the human spectrum are ultrasonic, while those below it are infrasonic. The UK government published a 200-page report on the health effects of exposure to ultrasound and infrasound, stating that ultrasound has been used as a technology to promote the treatment of contaminated soil wastes. The contaminated soil is mixed with water and exposed to a source of ultrasound. Complex pollutant molecules are destroyed. Although pressure waves can damage cells, they can also stimulate them and promote growth. One study published by the National Center for Biotechnology Information found that white noise and bass sounds had a positive effect on the germination rate of maize seeds. Only 3 hours treatment produced an increase of about 8%, and 5 hours increased germination in about 10%. Marianne Liebert, Incorporated, published a study which concluded that musical sound had a highly statistically significant effect on the number of seeds sprouted compared to the untreated control over all 5 experiments. Similarly, Biomed Research International reported that sound is effective for stimulating the germination and growth of mung beans, suggesting that this technique has interesting possibilities in biophysics. While it would be a stretch to say that plants hear in an anthropomorphic sense, it is clear that they use auditory signals for communication and survival. A study published by ResearchGate explores how roots locate water using sound, leading them to conclude, "Our study clearly demonstrated that plants are able to use sound to locate water inside sealed pipes." They added, "Our results also showed that the presence of noise affected the abilities of roots to perceive and respond correctly to the surrounding soundscape." These findings highlight the urgent need to better understand the ecological role of sound and the consequences of acoustic pollution for plant as well as animal populations. Yet another article published in the National Library of Medicine asserts that sound waves affect plants at the biochemical, physical, and genetic levels. Thalecrest seeds exposed to sound waves for 15 hours a day for 3 days had significantly longer root growth than the control group. The root length and cell number in the root were significantly affected by sound waves. Furthermore, genes involved in cell division were upregulated in seedlings exposed to sound waves. They also found increased concentration of chemical compounds in the roots following exposure to sound. They conclude, "Our findings suggest that sound waves are potential agricultural tools for improving crop growth performance." Plants as well as humans stand to benefit from this applied science. The mushroom industry has been growing rapidly, with Cornell University reporting it to be valued at $34.3 billion by 2024, up from $20 billion in 2018. Mushrooms are sustainable, nutrient-rich foods with many industrial applications, ranging from mycotextiles to pollution control through a process known as mycoremediation. Research from the Chinese Society of Agricultural Engineering conducted an experiment on mushrooms using classical music and pre-recorded cricket sounds. They concluded that sound increased mycelium growth, accelerated their fruiting, advanced the harvest time, and extended the picking period. The audio treatment also increased the yields of edible mushrooms. The nutrient content of the mushrooms was also enhanced. Sound can even affect genetic expression, and ultrasound has been used in gene regulation. An exhaustive report from Kyoto University cited too many studies to include here, indicating that sound can impact DNA, RNA, cell membranes, tumors, cellular cavitation, and cytoskeletons. In essence, every part of an organism, from the molecular level up, has been shown to respond to sonic stimuli. It is no longer a question of whether sound affects plants or not. Now, our work is to study the incredibly complex interactions between sound and plants. So far, we've looked at how plants respond to sound, but what about the sound produced by plants themselves? Scientists from Tel Aviv University report that plants emit airborne sounds, which can be detected from several meters away. We were able to achieve high accuracy in distinguishing between drought-stressed, cut, and control plants, based only on the sounds they emit. These results demonstrate the potential in studying phytoacoustics, and suggest that this form of communication may play an important role in plant ecology and evolution, and may have direct implications for plant monitoring in agriculture. They went on to suggest that nearby life forms could make decisions based on the sounds emitted by plants. Plant sounds can be effectively classified by machine learning algorithms. Other organisms may have evolved to classify these sounds as well and respond to them. For instance, many moths, some of them using tomato and tobacco as hosts for their larvae, can hear and react to ultrasound in the frequencies and intensities that we recorded. These moths may potentially benefit from avoiding laying their eggs on a plant that had emitted stress sounds. We speculate that plants could potentially hear their drought-stressed or injured neighbors and react accordingly. These are only a few among many published and peer-reviewed scientific articles which confirm that sound vibration plays a vital role in the life of plants. While many hypotheses born from this research have yet to be explored, the world can look forward to a vast frontier of research and development when it comes to the role of sound in various ecosystems. The field of soundscape ecology classifies sound into three primary categories: biophony, biologically produced sounds; geophony, non-biological, naturally produced sounds; and anthrophony, human-produced sounds. Research reveals that animals compete with each other for sonic territory, using calls at different frequency ranges and times of day. According to soundscape ecologist Bernie Krause, human noise pollution from machines, power lines, and airborne wave transmissions can directly impede animal communication. The Health Protection Agency reports that some products use airborne ultrasound to scare away animals. Farmers make use of this technology to deter pests. With increasing evidence that plants also respond to and produce sonic signals, we must consider the full spectrum impact of human activity on the natural world. To that end, sound could be used to stimulate the regrowth of forests, coral reefs, and other vital habitats. Since the 1970s, researchers at Damanhur in northern Italy have been developing technology to help humans communicate with plants. Their work acknowledges plant intelligence and suggests that plants can learn and interact with human beings and their technology. They published a statement that Damanhur researchers have created an instrument capable of detecting electromagnetic vibrations from the surface of the plant leaves to the root system. Such vibrations are then translated into sound through a MIDI interface. The pulse streams of each organism are unique, with each plant manifesting its own individual biological signature sound. The plants realize that the sounds emitted by the device are a consequence of their electric activity. Then they learn to modulate their impedance to change the sounds. When they interact with musicians, for example, they sometimes even repeat the same scales, the same tunes, and the same notes. That plants respond to music is widely known. Bentham published a study which found that music gave a positive effect on the in vitro seed germination and plant growth rate. Different genres of music exposure resulted in different growth rates on certain orchid species. Based on the findings, it can be concluded that different types of orchids need different types of music to influence the rate of its germination and growth. The achievement in discovering the best music to enhance orchid growth can promote a mass production of orchids worldwide. The notion of plant autonomy and intelligence faces stiff resistance from an anthropocentric scientific world that often writes off such claims as being pseudoscientific. Nevertheless, plants have been shown to modify their behavior in response to sound vibrations in the environment. Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory published findings that flowers exposed to the playback sound of a flying bee or to synthetic sound signals at similar frequencies produced sweeter nectar within 3 minutes, potentially increasing the chances of cross-pollination. Furthermore, plants may only release pollen in response to specific frequencies produced by bees during a process known as sonication or buzz pollination. An article out of the University of Stirling describes the process. Buzz pollination captures an interaction between bees and flowers, representing the confluence of two related but separate phenomena: the production of vibrations by bees and the effects of those vibrations on pollen release. Additionally, research from the University of Western Australia Centre for Evolutionary Biology found that root tips exposed to a frequency of 220 Hz grew in the direction of the sound source. Sounds generated by plants are known as plant bioacoustics. Monica Gagliano writes, "Plants emit sound waves at the lower end of the audio range, as well as ultrasonic acoustic emissions. Over the last 45 years, these acoustic emissions have been measured and described several times. Although we know plants emit and detect sound, we have yet to fully understand how these mechanisms operate. In essence, we are learning how plants communicate. With so much evidence of complex behavioral processes involving plant life and sound, it is reasonable to suggest that plants develop their own languages. Ancient people from around the world already claim to communicate with plants and acknowledge their unique forms of intelligence. Indigenous tribes, such as the Wirarika, Dene, and Kashinawa, sing specific chants and ikaros to communicate with plant medicines. Many traditional farming communities sing to and pray over seeds throughout planting, growing, and harvesting cycles to promote healthy crops. Gawanonji of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy writes, "We have songs for planting. We sing to our seeds and say ancient prayers. We talk to the elements. We stand in a circle in our place of ceremonies and sing special songs. The men sing special sacred old chants, and when the men sing, we women clap our hands gently as we honor them. These special Atonwa songs are for men only, and they sing them to connect them to the Creator, and so they can sing for their life and be thankful. If we operate from the assumption that plants are not intelligent, we may never discover their advanced capacities. Until recently, the mechano-perceptual abilities of plants were largely unknown. Many scientists assumed human supremacy over plants and considered them to exhibit relatively limited life functions. Yet the reality is, humans are unilaterally dependent on plants for oxygen, food, and shelter. Algae and plants have had billions of years of evolution to develop their survival and communication strategies. Plants make use of sophisticated chemical signals to communicate through interconnected root systems, mycelial networks, and airborne pathways. We have only scratched the surface of the complex properties of fungi. The use of psychoactive plants for healing and exploring consciousness are yet another key to understanding how plants themselves might communicate with and through other life forms. Countless other plants used by ancient people represent thousands, if not millions of years of collective knowledge of plant technology. To these people, the relationship between humankind and plant life is not one of mere consumption and exploitation, but of veneration, mutual respect, and interdependence. Humanity has reached a crisis with regards to our environment in which science alone is unequipped to impress the importance of ecology on the human conscience. Perhaps Indigenous wisdom keepers can offer some perspective on how to coexist in a sustainable way, as they have done for countless generations. Maestro Domingo Diaz Porta, founder of the Association of the Solar American Indian, writes, "Shamans know what a certain plant is for. The researchers ask, and how do you know? What study did you do? Who told you?" And the shaman says, "No, I talk to the plants, and the plants tell me what they are for." The researcher who goes to the city knows nothing about that. They are skeptical. They have a hard time believing that one can speak with the vegetable kingdom. But the shamans have the experience, because since childhood they are trained in the great school, the great university that is nature, and they learn to read that sacred book of nature that is available to all. But most people do not know that language and the way nature writes. Modern science is beginning to realize that plants communicate and respond to their environment on many levels. Sound is key to life, as integral as water, sunlight, air, and other nutrients. Plant growth can be helped or hindered by sound. Therefore, the impact of sound must be considered from the cellular level to the complex interactions of entire ecosystems. The deliberate use of sound could revolutionize our approach to agriculture and ecology.